The winter wind swept across the dry fields of Red Willow Ranch like a mournful cry, rattling old fence posts and carrying dust that stung the eyes. Ethan Carter, a rancher known in town for being strong, quiet and impossible to read, was finishing his nightly chores. His barn smelled of hay and warm horses, a familiar comfort that kept him going ever since loneliness settled into his life. He'd lost his family years ago, parents gone too soon, a fiancée who walked out without explanation, and ever since then, Ethan had spoken more to his animals than he had to human beings. Tonight, he thought, would be like every other night, silent supper alone, then another long, cold sleep in a house that echoed with memories. But just as he set down the last bucket of feed, he heard something, soft, fragile, not the cry of an animal, but the trembling voice of a child fighting fear. "Sir!" Ethan turned sharply, heart pounding with instinct more than fear. No one ever wandered this far out, especially not at night. His lantern swung as he stepped outside, and the beam of light caught two tiny shapes huddled against the wind. A girl, thin, shivering, no more than 7, was holding the hand of a much smaller boy, barely 5. Their clothes were dirty, too light for the cold, and their small bodies shook with exhaustion. The girl stepped forward, her lips trembling as she forced out the bravest voice she could manage. "Can we sleep in your barn?" "Please," Ethan froze. The words hit him harder than the wind ever could. 2 children, alone, freezing, terrified, asking to sleep in a barn instead of a warm house. Something inside him cracked open, something he thought had died years ago. He kneeled down to their height, lowering his lantern so he could see their faces clearly. The girl looked strong, as if she'd been forced to grow up overnight. The boy clung to her side, like she was the only safe thing left in his world. Ethan's voice came out rough, emotional in a way he didn't mean it to be. "No," he said quietly. The girl's face instantly twisted. Fear, disappointment, panic. She grabbed her brother tighter, and he hid his face in her shirt. Ethan immediately shook his head, stepping forward to wrap his thick ranch coat around them both. "No, sweetheart. I mean, you're not sleeping in the barn," he whispered. "You're coming inside the house." The girl blinked up at him, stunned. The boy peered out shyly, eyes wide like a scared kitten. Ethan put one strong arm around them and guided them gently inside the warm ranch house, where the fireplace glowed softly. The children stood by the fire, as if afraid they might be dreaming. Ethan quickly grabbed blankets, warm water, and leftover stew from the stove. The girl, even hungry, made sure her brother had enough before she touched her own spoon. That tiny act hit Ethan harder than anything, such responsibility on such tiny shoulders. After they warmed up, Ethan knelt down again. "Tell me what happened," he said softly. The girl swallowed, her small hands twisting nervously. "My name is Emily," she said. "This is my little brother Noah." Noah gave a tiny wave, still hiding behind her. Emily's voice cracked as she tried to continue. We had a mama, but she got very sick on the road. She couldn't walk anymore." Ethan's chest tightened. Emily took a shaky breath. "She told us to keep walking until we reached a house. Any house. She said someone kind would help us." Tears gathered in her eyes, but she blinked fiercely to keep them from falling. "We walked all day, and then it got cold, and then we saw your barn light." Noah tugged her sleeve and whispered, "Mama said angels live on farms." Emily shook her head. "Noah, not angels, just good people." Ethan swallowed hard, his throat burning. Those children, alone in a storm, believing any stranger might be their last hope. And somehow they had found their way to him. "You did good," Ethan whispered. "Both of you. You stayed brave." Emily's lip trembled at the word brave. Nobody had ever told her that before. Ethan prepared a sleeping space for them on the couch, adding extra blankets, even placing his old stuffed horse toy, the one he'd kept from childhood, beside. Noah, the boy, hugged it instantly, as if it had always belonged to him. But long after the children had fallen asleep, Ethan stood watching them. Emily's arm was protectively wrapped around Noah, even in sleep. Noah slept with his cheek against the stuffed horse, breathing softly. Ethan felt something shift deep within him. These children had knocked on his barn door, But somehow they had walked straight into the empty spaces of his heart. As the fire crackled softly, he whispered into the quiet room, "You're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." And Ethan meant every word with a depth he hadn't felt in years. The sun rose gently over Red Willow Ranch, casting gold over the frost-covered fields and flooding the quiet kitchen with soft morning light. Ethan Carter woke before dawn, as always, but today felt different the moment he opened his eyes. There was a warmth in his chest, a feeling he hadn't known in years. As he stepped into the living room, he found little Noah curled up on the couch, hugging the stuffed horse like it was family, while Emily slept beside him with one protective arm still wrapped around her. Brother even in dreams. Ethan watched them for a moment, struck by how small they looked against the large couch, how innocent, how much trust they carried into a house of a man they didn't know. Quietly he began making breakfast, warm biscuits, eggs and milk, trying not to wake them. But Noah, sensing the smell of food, sat up rubbing his eyes. "Good morning," he squeaked. Ethan smiled, a real smile, not the forced ones he showed in town. "Morning, buddy. Hungry?" Noah nodded so fast Ethan laughed, the sound echoing through a house that hadn't heard laughter in years. Emily woke a moment later, startled until she remembered where she was. When she saw Noah eating happily at the table, she relaxed, letting out a breath that looked like she'd been holding it all her life. Over breakfast, Emily tried to act mature, insisting Noah eat first, trying to sit straight like a grown-up. But Ethan gently placed a biscuit on her plate. "You're a kid," he said softly. "You get to eat like one." The way her eyes softened told him nobody had said anything so simple, so kind, in a very long time. After breakfast, Ethan gave the kids warm clothes. "Can we help with chores?" Emily asked shyly. Ethan blinked. Most kids hated chores. "Sure," he said, trying not to show how touched he was. Out in the barn, Emily held a small broom and swept tiny lines across the floor, while Noah patted the horses with gentle curiosity. The storage room, his sister's old child-sized sweaters that his mother had saved long ago. Seeing Emily wear a pink wool sweater that once belonged to his late sister crushed something and healed something inside him at the same time. Noah wore a blue one that was too big, sleeves covering half his hands, and he looked up proudly as if wearing something magical. Ethan watched them fit so naturally into the ranch that it felt right, like the world had sent them to him on purpose. At one point, Noah tugged Ethan's jeans. "Mr. Ethan, can we stay here forever?" Emily froze. Her eyes widened, fear mixing with hope, expecting Ethan to say no. Ethan knelt down slowly, meeting Noah's innocent face and Emily's trembling one. "You both can stay," he said softly. "As long as you need." Emily's chin wobbled, and Noah threw his little arms around Ethan's neck, surprising him so much he almost lost balance. Ethan hugged him back gently, feeling something break open in his chest, a space that had been empty for far too long. The rest of the day was peaceful. The kids followed him everywhere, asking questions, learning, laughing. Emily helped him gather eggs. Noah fed the chickens. They played with the ranch dog, Daisy, who hadn't been this excited in years. By evening, the house felt full of life, full of warmth, full of something Ethan hadn't dared to believe in again, family. That night after dinner, while the children slept again on the couch, wrapped together like two lost stars, finally finding their sky, Ethan sat quietly by the fire. He looked around at the glowing room, at the soft whistle of the kettle on the stove, at the tiny shoes by the door, at Noah's stuffed horse on the rug, and he felt something bigger than gratitude. He felt purpose. He whispered to himself, "Maybe God didn't send them to my barn. Maybe he sent them to my heart." As the flames flickered, Ethan knew one thing with absolute certainty. He wasn't alone anymore. And neither were they. Together, they had formed a bond stronger than fear, stronger than loneliness, stronger than the storm that brought them together. Emily and Noah had found a home, and Ethan had found a reason to live again. And to everyone watching this story, if you believe in hope, kindness, and second chances, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because more stories like this are waiting. and your support keeps them alive.